A wedding celebration? For people who can't even afford a decent venue. The words sliced through the warm evening air at the upscale steakhouse, each syllable a fresh wound. My mother held the elegant invitation, hand-pressed paper with gold foil lettering, like it was contaminated, her perfectly shaped eyebrows arching in theatrical disdain. The private dining room, with its leather banquettes and soft amber lighting, suddenly felt like a courtroom. Beside me, Daniel didn't flinch. He calmly reached for the wine list, his composure unshaken even as my mother's words attempted to gut him. Across the table, my younger sister Claire pressed her napkin to her lips, but I caught the flicker of satisfaction in her eyes. She had rehearsed for this moment, I realized. Probably practiced her reaction in the mirror. The clink of glasses from nearby tables seemed amplified in the suffocating silence that followed. "Mom," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice, "it would mean everything to have you there." She slid the invitation back across the white linen tablecloth as if declining a bad business deal. "I have plans that weekend. Claire is receiving a major professional honor. We're celebrating someone who actually built something meaningful." Daniel's hand found mine beneath the table, warm and reassuring, his thumb tracing small circles on my palm, our private signal for "I'm here, I'm not going anywhere." I picked up my water glass, focusing on the condensation cooling my fingers. "Then attend her event, Mom. We'll have our celebration, and it will be perfect because of who shows up, not who doesn't." She waved dismissively, already signaling for the check, already mentally absent. 6 years earlier, I had no idea that failure would become the foundation of everything I valued. The tech startup was called Apex Innovations, an ambitious name for a company that imploded within 9 months. I was Daniel's business partner then, strictly professional, sharing cheap noodles and bigger dreams in a rundown industrial space in Oakland. The day the venture capital evaporated, employees scattered like leaves before a storm. Everyone except me. I found him slumped on the concrete floor, surrounded by spreadsheets, late afternoon light streaming through grimy windows. He looked up, surprise crossing his features. "Shouldn't you be updating your resume?" he asked. "Probably." I sat down beside him, holding 2 paper cups of terrible vending machine coffee, all we could justify spending. "But I thought we could be miserable together first, then figure out the next move." That was the precise moment, though neither of us recognized it then. While Claire was sending our mother photos of her new corner office and engraved business cards, Daniel and I were constructing something authentic from rubble. We worked 16-hour days. The ancient printer jammed constantly, its mechanical gasps becoming background music to our partnership evolving into something deeper. One night, exhausted beyond reason, he looked up from his laptop and said quietly, "Eventually, people will recognize who we really are." I stopped caring what they think, I admitted, surprising myself with the complete honesty of it. "We'll rebuild anyway." He smiled then, a genuine, unguarded expression that made my heart perform acrobatics. That was the exact moment I understood I loved him. Not during a candle-lit dinner or romantic getaway, but somewhere between shattered ambitions and cheap caffeine, in an instant defined not by success, but by stubborn, defiant hope. My mother called every Sunday without fail. Each conversation included a detailed report about Claire. "Your sister just landed a major client account. The regional directors specifically requested her input." Every achievement delivered with the implied comparison, "Unlike your life." I'd put her on speaker while organizing paperwork. Daniel would silently mouth, "Let it go." But I didn't need to let go. I possessed something she couldn't comprehend, a partner who remained when everything collapsed. Someone who valued building over performing. We revived the business gradually, methodically. By year 2, we employed 12 people. By year 3, we were genuinely profitable. By year 4, Daniel proposed over takeout Thai food in that same warehouse where we'd started, and I accepted before he completed the question. My mother's dismissive words echoed even then. What future can a failed entrepreneur possibly offer? The answer, I discovered, was the future we would construct ourselves. The steakhouse was my mother's selection, naturally. She preferred establishments with French-sounding names, places where visibility mattered more than cuisine. The wall of mirrors multiplied our reflection. My mother's critical expression repeated endlessly, Claire's calculated innocence duplicated, Daniel's quiet dignity, and me, pretending so desperately that this wasn't destroying me inside. I had chosen the moment strategically. Family dinner, neutral environment, with Daniel present so she could perceive us as a united front. I presented the invitation during dessert. Hopping expensive wine might have softened her edges. I was wrong. A wedding for people in your financial situation. She hadn't even examined it properly, just held it like proof of my inadequate life choices, her gaze sweeping over Daniel's affordable suit, his simple watch, his gentle smile she misinterpreted as weakness. "We genuinely want you there," Daniel offered, his voice warm despite her icy reception. "This is about family, not money." "Family," she placed her wine glass down with deliberate precision. "I'm occupied that weekend anyway. Claire is being promoted to director. A genuine achievement warrants genuine recognition." Claire performed flawlessly, modest downcast eyes, practiced humility. "Oh, Mom, you don't need to make such a production." The falsehoods flowed effortlessly, like lines from a rehearsed script. I wondered if she practiced in front of a mirror, perfecting that combination of humility and superiority. "When individuals accomplish something meaningful," my mother continued, adjusting her designer scarf, "you celebrate appropriately, not some discount ceremony." The words cut deeper than the rejection itself, not because I valued expensive venues, but because she genuinely believed that defined worth. She had raised me to view love as transactional, success as salary-dependent, and redemption as impossible after failure. I retrieved the rejected invitation, smoothing its crumpled corner. "That's fine, Mom. Attend Claire's celebration. We'll have our wedding, and it will be exactly what matters, surrounded by people who genuinely care." "Don't be dramatic, Alina," she waved dismissively, already motioning for the waiter. "You'll understand when you're older, when you finally mature and perceive reality clearly." But my perception was crystal clear. I saw a woman who preferred attending a fiction rather than witnessing a truth. A sister who constructed her entire identity around being superior to me. And Daniel, steady, unwavering, his hand finding mine beneath the table. The invitation slipped from my mother's expensive handbag as she rose to leave, fluttering to the floor like a surrender flag. Neither she nor Claire glanced back as they departed, leaving Daniel and me beneath chandeliers that suddenly seemed less oppressive. "Well," he said softly, "that exceeded expectations." I actually laughed. She usually takes longer to systematically destroy my spirit. The drive home stretched endlessly. Lowe's Angels traffic blurred past Daniel's practical sedan. Streetlights, neon signs, headlights from vehicles carrying people who presumably had normal families that actually showed up for important moments. He didn't attempt to fill the silence with empty comfort. That quality defined him, knowing when words would only create more noise. His right hand rested on the gearshift. I covered it with mine, anchoring myself to something real. Waiting at a red light on Wilshire Boulevard, tears finally came. Not dramatic sobs, just silent streams I couldn't contain. I turned toward the window, watching my reflection weep against the city backdrop. "I'm not crying about what she said," I whispered. "I'm crying because I genuinely believe tonight might be different, that seeing us together, seeing our happiness might actually matter to her." Daniel squeezed my hand. "You know what I think. Let's stop wasting energy trying to prove her wrong. Let's just prove ourselves right." The light changed. We merged back into traffic. In the rearview mirror, I watched the restaurant district recede, the warm glow of that steakhouse becoming just another light in the urban constellation. Each block felt like distance from the pain, like we were physically escaping the rejection. "My mother always said family means everything," I said after several minutes. But she meant it conditionally. "Family means everything. If you're successful, if you make her look good, if you follow her script." "Then we'll write our own script," Daniel replied. "One where showing up matters more than showing off, where staying matters more than winning." I thought about all the times Claire had abandoned her principles for advancement, how she'd learned to weaponize our mother's approval. I thought about Daniel remaining in that warehouse when everyone else fled, how he'd rebuilt not just a business but a belief that failure wasn't terminal. "You know what I want," I said suddenly. "A wedding completely unlike anything she'd approve of, small, authentic, just people who genuinely love us." "Done," he smiled, that crooked smile that still made my heart stumble. "Though I draw the line at a Vegas drive-through chapel. No promises." By the time we reached our apartment complex, tears had dried. The moon hung low over the city, indifferent to human drama, beautiful in its constancy. Daniel circled to open my door, his small ritual even after difficult nights, and we walked upstairs together. In our modest living room with mismatched furniture and walls covered in vision boards, I felt richer than Claire could ever imagine, because I had someone who witnessed my failure and remained. Someone who chose me deliberately, not because I performed well. That held more value than any promotion, any mother's approval. We married on a Santa Barbara beach on a Wednesday in May. 18 people attended, friends from difficult years, colleagues who believed in our company's second act, Daniel's childhood friend who flew from New York. No relatives from my side. The absence was noticeable, a gap in the small gathering like a missing tooth. But it didn't feel empty. It felt honest. I wore a simple dress from a vintage shop in Santa Monica, ivory linen that caught the ocean breeze. No veil, no train, no thousands spent on single-use garments. Daniel wore a navy suit, his grandfather's watch, and an expression that made me feel like the only person existing. Our friend Marcus officiated, ordained online the previous week. When he asked, "Who presents this woman for marriage?" Silence followed, the traditional moment when a father steps forward, performing the ritual transfer of ownership we pretend isn't about ownership anymore. No one moved. Then I stepped forward, took Daniel's hands, and said clearly, "I present myself." A ripple of emotion passed through our small gathering. Someone sniffled. Daniel's eyes glistened. I watched him blink rapidly, fighting tears and losing. We exchanged vows, words written at 2 a.m. over wine and vulnerability, and Marcus pronounced us married to the sound of waves and genuine applause. During the reception at a nearby restaurant, dancing with Daniel to Etta James, I noticed someone checking their phone with a sad smile. I knew without asking. Instagram was probably illuminated with my mother's posts from Claire's fabricated celebration, some upscale venue in Beverly Hills, my sister in designer attire she'd likely return, captions about pride and achievement and blessed. "What are you thinking?" Daniel murmured, swaying with me. "How perfect this actually is," I replied honestly. The string lights, genuine laughter, the sunset painting everything golden over the Pacific. I wouldn't change anything. Later, someone showed me my mother's Instagram. Photo after photo of Claire at what appeared to be a corporate event at a fancy hotel, champagne towers, speeches, a banner congratulating her promotion. The caption read, "So proud of my accomplished daughter. Some children make you shine. Blessed success, family first." I handed back the phone without comment. Let her have her performance. Let Claire bask in manufactured glory. I possessed the authentic thing, a partner who'd seen me at my lowest, and decided that was precisely when I became most worth loving. We spent our wedding night at a small inn overlooking the ocean, where waves drowned out everything else. No European honeymoon, no luxury resort, just us, salt air, and the future we'd construct together. Somewhere in Lowe's Angels, my mother probably continued posting photos. Here, I was becoming someone who no longer needed her validation to feel complete. That felt like winning. My sister had elevated deception to an art form. I didn't discover the full extent immediately, but pieces emerged through mutual acquaintances. Claire worked at a mid-sized tech company downtown, not prestigious enough to boast about, but respectable enough to build fantasies around. She was a contractor 6 months into a renewable position. No promotion, no directorship, just a decent job performing decent work, which apparently wasn't sufficient for her or our mother's insatiable need for bragging material. So Claire constructed an elaborate fiction. First came the social media campaign, carefully staged desk photos with "working late on the major project" captions, screenshots of calendar, invites to meetings with impressive-sounding names, a new designer blazer photographed with "dressing for the role you want" hashtags. Then the celebration. She'd told our mother she was being promoted to director, complete fabrication. To sell it, she'd rented a private room at that fancy hotel, invited coworkers under the pretense of a team gathering, and positioned herself as the honoree. She'd even ordered a banner, "Congratulations, Claire." The coworkers attended for free food and drinks, confused but willing participants. One of them mentioned it to her boyfriend, who happened to work in Daniel's building. Small world, Lowe's Angels. "Your sister works at Quantum Solutions." He'd asked at a gallery opening a month after our wedding. "I suppose so," I replied, barely interested. Claire and I hadn't spoken since that disastrous dinner. Interesting thing, he continued, sipping wine. My girlfriend works there too. She mentioned this strange party where one of the contractors pretended to receive a promotion, but management knew nothing about it. Complete mystery. Something cold settled in my stomach. When was this? Same weekend you got married, actually. My girlfriend thought it was bizarre. Who throws themselves a promotion party their own company doesn't know about? I didn't tell Daniel that night. It felt petty to care. We were building something authentic. Our company had just secured 2 major contracts. We were discussing expansion, and I was genuinely content. Why let Claire's desperate performance art contaminate that? But I thought about it. Thought about her sitting in that rented room accepting congratulations for achievements that never happened. Thought about my mother posting photo after photo, constructing a narrative of success built on nothing but expensive smoke and mirrors. The thing about deception, though, is its maintenance requirement. You must remember what you said, who you told, which version applies to which audience. It's exhausting. Truth, conversely, simply exists, solid, patient, waiting. And I possessed truth, even if nobody recognized it yet. In any industry, secrets eventually surface. Every lie eventually encounters light. I simply didn't realize our light would illuminate quite so brightly. Invitations look exceptional, Alina, Marcus said, examining the embossed card stock. Very professional. We occupied the conference room of what had become Sterling Group headquarters, 20 floors up in a glass tower downtown. 12 years since the bankruptcy. 12 years of gradual, deliberate construction. We'd expanded nationally after year 8 when opportunities elsewhere outpaced what Lowe's Angels offered. Daniel had insisted on understated branding for the anniversary gala. The Sterling Group logo, simple, elegant design, appeared in the corner of each invitation. No flashy announcements, no ostentatious displays, just celebration of 15 years in business, invitation to colleagues, partners, and employees from all 8 subsidiary companies, including Quantum Solutions, the mid-sized tech firm we'd acquired 3 years ago. The company where Claire worked. Neither Daniel nor I had mentioned the connection during acquisition negotiations. He handled most business operations. I'd moved into the chief operating officer role, managing corporate culture and integration. We'd learned to separate professional from personal. We'd had to. Have you reviewed the RSVP list? Daniel asked, examining the seating chart. 400 confirmed, another 100 pending. I scanned down the spreadsheet. Wait! My finger stopped on 2 names. My mother and Claire RSVP'd. Yes, Daniel looked up from his laptop. They work for one of our companies. They'd receive invitations like everyone else. But they don't know. No, his expression remained carefully neutral. I've maintained low visibility. Most subsidiary employees have never seen parent company leadership. That was intentional. My heart accelerated. Daniel, what are you planning? Nothing. He closed his laptop, meeting my eyes. I'm simply hosting a company anniversary celebration. If certain individuals happen to discover certain truths, well, that's just transparency in action. I should have felt vindictive satisfaction. Instead, I experienced something more complex, nervousness, perhaps, or anticipation. The woman I'd become over 15 years wasn't certain she wanted revenge. But the girl humiliated at that steakhouse. She found this moment deeply compelling. The venue looks incredible, I said, redirecting to safer territory. The event coordinator exceeded expectations. Everything's ready. Daniel stood, straightening his tie. Catering confirmed. AV team has the presentation loaded. Marcus will handle the announcement. Marcus, our wedding officiant, now our chief operating officer, promoted 5 years ago when his strategic brilliance became undeniable. He knows. He insisted. Daniel smiled. Said, and I quote, I was there when you two had nothing but hope and instant noodles. I'm not missing this. The invitations sat in neat stacks, awaiting final distribution. I picked one up, running my finger over the embossed logo, Sterling Group. Our name, our 15 years, our truth. Justice doesn't always roar, I murmured, recalling something my college philosophy professor once said. Sometimes it simply arrives precisely on time. Sometimes, Daniel agreed. It's just dinner served at the perfect temperature. The ballroom at the Beverly Wilshire was exactly the type of venue my mother would appreciate. Crystal chandeliers, marble columns, the weight of old money and new success mingling beneath soaring ceilings. 400 guests mingled as a string quartet played softly in the corner. I spotted them near the bar. My mother in a designer gown she'd probably purchased specifically for this event. Claire in something sleek and black that screamed, "I belong here." They studied the room with identical evaluative expressions, trying to decipher the hierarchy, identify who mattered most. Neither had seen me yet. I observed from backstage, watching through a curtain gap, heart hammering against my ribs. "You okay?" Marcus appeared beside me, immaculate in his tuxedo. Surprisingly, yes. I smoothed my gown, deep burgundy silk that Daniel had helped select. "Nervous, but okay." "Good." He squeezed my shoulder. "Because it's showtime." The lights dimmed. The crowd quieted. I watched my mother grab Claire's arm, face animated, presumably thinking this was Claire's company event, that her daughter held importance here. Marcus took the stage, voice amplified by perfect acoustics. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you for celebrating 15 years of Sterling Group with us tonight, a decade and a half ago." This company existed only as an idea in a warehouse. Two people, one collapsed dream, and the audacity to try again. I saw my mother lean toward Claire, whispering, probably asking which executive Claire knew well enough to warrant invitation. "Tonight, we honor the vision and perseverance of our founder." Marcus paused for effect, his smile genuine. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sterling Group's president and CEO, Mr. Daniel Sterling." Applause swelled as Daniel walked onto stage. Through the curtain gap, I watched realization dawn on my mother's face. Color drained from her cheeks. Claire's wine glass trembled in her hand. Daniel's voice carried perfectly across the room. "I once lost everything. Not just money or a business, but the belief that success could be built on anything authentic. Then I met someone who taught me that failure isn't fatal, that showing up matters more than showing off, that the right partner makes you brave enough to begin again." Paused, his eyes finding mine even through the curtain. "I rebuilt this company with my wife, my partner, the woman who remained when everyone else fled. Please welcome Sterling Group's Chief Operating Officer, Elena Sterling." The curtain opened. Spotlights caught the name placard at my place on stage, COO Elena Sterling. I walked out to genuine applause from people who knew my work, respected my contributions, had no idea about the family drama unfolding. I didn't look directly at my mother. Didn't need to. In peripheral vision, I saw her sink into her chair. Saw Claire's hand fly to her mouth. Somewhere in the room, a wine glass shattered against marble floor. The sound of illusions breaking, I thought, and smiled. I found them in the coat check alcove 20 minutes later, away from the celebration. My mother sat on a bench, her designer handbag clutched like a shield. Claire stood against the wall, mascara smeared, staring at her phone as if it might offer escape. They both looked up when I entered, silence stretched tight as wire. "Quite a surprise," I said finally, keeping my voice neutral. "You could have told us." My mother's voice cracked on the final word, not an apology, just accusation wearing different clothing. "You let us make fools of ourselves." "I sent you a wedding invitation," I replied quietly. "You chose not to attend, that was your decision, not mine." Claire pushed off from the wall. "You knew I worked for one of your companies, you knew and said nothing." "I didn't know until after the acquisition, and then," I shrugged. "What was I supposed to do, call you?" "We haven't spoken in 3 years, Claire. Not since you sat across that dinner table smirking while Mom systematically destroyed my life choices." "I didn't." "You did." I cut her off, but without heat, just tired fact. "You constructed your entire identity around being superior to me, around being the accomplished daughter. But it was all performance, wasn't it? The promotion that never happened. The party you staged. The lies you told so you could feel superior." Claire's face crumpled. For a moment, she looked like the little sister I'd grown up with before competition poisoned everything. "I just wanted Mom to be proud of me." "I know, and I did too. We were both casualties of the same impossible standards. We'd simply chosen different survival strategies. But pride built on lies isn't real, Claire. It's just exhausting." My mother finally spoke, her voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. "I was wrong about Daniel." "Yes," I agreed. "You were. And about you." I absorbed that, letting the words settle. Not quite an apology, but closer than I'd ever expected. "I don't need your apology, Mom. I need you to understand something. The man you dismissed as a failure taught me more about worth than you ever did. He showed me that falling isn't the end. That someone's value isn't measured by their bank account or job title." I moved toward the door, ready to return to my celebration, to the life I'd built despite her doubts. Then I paused, looking back at two women who suddenly seemed much smaller than in my memory. You can stay if you want. There's plenty of food, the speeches are finished. Or you can leave. Either way, I'm okay. Daniel waited in the hallway, patient as always. He raised an eyebrow in question. Complicated, I said, taking his arm, but I'm okay. He studied my face. Yeah, you are. We walked back toward the music together. 3 weeks later, I texted my mother. Dinner at our place this Sunday, nothing fancy, just us. She replied 6 hours later. What time? The table in our Lowe's Angels home was one Daniel and I built ourselves, reclaimed wood from a demolished warehouse downtown, sanded and stained over multiple weekends. It wasn't perfect. You could see seams where different planks joined, the small divot where I dropped a screwdriver, but it was solid, honest. Sunday evening, the doorbell rang at exactly 7. My mother stood on the doorstep holding a bottle of wine, expensive, which didn't surprise me, and an expression I'd never seen on her face before, uncertainty. Come in, I said, stepping back. She entered slowly, taking in our home. Modern but warm, art from local galleries. Photos of Daniel and me scattered throughout. No evidence of wealth displayed for show, just evidence of lives being lived deliberately. This is lovely, she said, and almost sounded like she meant it. Daniel emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. Helen, glad you could make it. He took her coat with the same courtesy he'd shown at that steakhouse when she'd been shredding his worth with every word. We sat at the table I'd mentioned in my text, the one I'd told her we built ourselves. She ran her hand across the surface, fingers tracing the grain. Not from a store, I said lightly, bringing out salad. We made it last year. Took 3 months of weekends, but we wanted something that would last. She nodded slowly, still touching the wood. It's beautiful. Dinner was simple, roasted chicken, vegetables from the farmer's market, bread from the neighborhood bakery. We ate to the sound of jazz from the speaker. Conversation careful but genuine. Daniel told a story about a deal that nearly collapsed. I mentioned the new community program we were launching through the company. My mother listened more than she talked, which might have been a first. As I cleared plates, she said quietly, I owe you an apology, a real one. I paused, meeting her eyes. I taught you that love was transactional, that success meant performing for others, that worth was something you had to prove constantly. She swallowed hard. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. The words hung there, imperfect but honest. I thought about all the ways I'd imagined this moment. The satisfaction, the vindication, the I told you so, that would feel so satisfying to deliver. Instead, I simply said, thank you. We moved to the living room for coffee. The moon rose over Lowe's Angels, visible through our floor-to-ceiling windows, transforming the city below into a constellation of possibilities. My mother sat on our couch, cradling her mug, looking more human than she had in years. That table really is lovely, she said again. Solid, like it could hold anything you placed on it. That was the idea, Daniel replied, his hand finding mine. Build something strong enough to weather whatever comes. We sat in comfortable silence. 3 people who'd survived the breaking and found their way to something like peace. Not perfect, not completely healed, but honest. Outside, the city hummed with millions of lives being lived, millions of stories unfolding. Inside, we'd built something that mattered more than appearances. A table where truth was welcome, where failure wasn't fatal, where showing up mattered more than showing off. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's just dinner served warm at a table built to last, with people brave enough to begin again. And that, I thought, watching my mother laugh at one of Daniel's terrible jokes, was exactly enough.